You're listening to News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Got a runner report you won't want to miss coming up. We'll get into that, folks. And yes, a jam-packed after show today. The latest out of Canada, and the state rolls right along. I want to start with our next guest here now. Brendan's with us. He's joining us now, News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM, and talk a little bit about some stories here close to home, but also some of the things that we're seeing happen throughout the country. Great Lakes Gun Rights. He's the executive director. Brendan, thanks for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Justin. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start locally here, close to home. Tragedy at Oxford is I think, is on a lot of folks' minds, praying for the families and the entire community there. At the same time, Rahm Emanuel, who worked for Obama administration, mayor of Chicago. This guy's famous for saying, "Hey, never let a good crisis go to waste."
Yeah.
And so he this is the ideology that's driving some of the obviously some of the latest news that we're hearing, and something that's being proposed to go on the ballot. And would that happen here in 22?
It's the gun control group that's looking to do this is looking at 2024. And just to back up a little bit, we just talked about this last week when Republican Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey announced that he's going to be holding hearings on red flag laws, which are a form of gun confiscation without due process. And this is one of the things that I was worried about with Shirkey moving forward with this hearing, is that we've kind of opened the floodgates for the gun control lobby and for the Democrats to just kind of pile on. Just earlier this week, we have this End Gun Violence Michigan group that's forming that will more than likely receive Bloomberg funding. And then just yesterday, Democrats in Lansing are doubling down on their pushing for mandatory storage laws, which we like to call lock up your safety laws, that require, under threat of criminal penalties, to lock up your guns and your ammunition separately, leaving you defenseless in your own homes.
It blows me away. These people who come out with these laws, clear they have never had any experience with a firearm. It's clear that they obviously aren't gun owners themselves, because some of the things they say and get behind, promote, I mean, it boggles the mind. There's no logic behind it.
Yeah, it's a utopian dream world where they think that somehow laws are going to change human behavior. I mean, they are trying to control human behavior. And I was talking to a reporter yesterday about this. The storage laws, mandatory storage laws, are reactionary. How are you going to actually enforce this? Are we going to send law enforcement door to door to everyone's houses to make sure their guns are locked up? So instead, all you're going to do is basically, give good law-abiding gun owners here in Michigan this conflict in their conscience about, well, I don't want to break the law. But then, we have study after study that shows that states that pass these laws embolden criminals. You have more examples of hot break-ins, of criminals breaking into homes when homeowners are home. We see examples of correlations with higher rates of violent crime and higher rates of property crime as well. But yet, you hear the Democrat talking points. You have Dana Nessel and Democrats saying, well, if we just would have had this law before Oxford, this probably would have never happened, which is revisionist history. We're just kind of changing history. As the evidence comes out, it shows that there are deeper problems there. There are warning signs missed. But yet the gun owners are going to get the brunt of it. And unfortunately, Republicans have opened the door to this pile on gun owners here in Michigan.
Looking right now with Brenden Boudreau, Great Lakes Gun Rights. And Brendan, one of the other stories, I'm looking at this morning, obviously that's a big one, but it made headlines yesterday that Remington, they were going to settle with some families in the Sandy Hook Elementary School incident in 2012. So walk us through this, because some of the headlines I saw said this will open the door and they have admitted liability. But, I'm not an attorney. I think a lot of companies settle a lot of times, in fact, in different ways, and it's to avoid admitting liability.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. It sends mixed signals anyways. And this ultimately, kind of goes back to the Supreme Court kind of punting this case and declining to take it up. And then, of course, Connecticut basically ruled that they were able to take this case up. So it opened the door. And yet, while we don't have judicial precedents being formed, you do have this issue of a kind of like a unofficial precedents being set that the gun control lobby and the gun control groups are going to at least keep trying this in areas where they think they can have friendly courts. And this is where judicial races matter. Here in Michigan, 2018, 2020, these years we had the Michigan Supreme Court up. And Democrats did better than Republicans on it. They realize, and left-wing groups have been running campaigns at the local level for prosecutors, for judges, for Supreme Court, and conservatives need to wake up. I mean, these races matter, and we need to make sure that that good conservative judges are on the bench.
There's another crazy story, and I'll just get your comment on this. I don't know if people have been paying attention or watching, but something wild happened in Louisville the other day, and like a candidate for mayor was shot at, and it turns out the man who shot at this candidate for mayor is a gun control activist.
Yeah,
it's just a wild story to wrap around your head around this. But he's involved with BLM, Antifa, and things like that as well. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, and on that too, I was reminded of when constitutional carry was getting ready to pass in Kentucky, or shortly after. That activist had written an article basically saying that Republicans don't care about you because they're passing constitutional carry, and then literally,
your life has meaning to the irresponsible politicians in Frankfurt who time and time again choose the National Rifle Association over your life. That's the man who shot at a Democrat candidate for mayor in Louisville.
Yeah, the hypocrisy of the left knows no bounds.
It's just such a wild story. So it's down in his name, 21 years old, charged with attempted murder and 4 counts of wanton endangerment in connection with the shooting of the office of the Democratic mayoral candidate Craig Greenberg in Louisville. And it happened on Monday morning. It's wild to see. These are the types of things that are happening. But I bring it up because, Brenden, one of the things we face as an issue, as a real problem, is censorship these days. Certain things get covered, certain things don't, and the media, they just won't cover a story like this.
Yeah, that's right. And whenever a certain narrative fits for the gun control lobby or for the the anti-gun agenda, of course they report it, and that's all they pile on. Yet we have evidence and studies of our own that show that gun control is a failure, and that disarming law-abiding Americans is a failure, and it leads to higher crime rates, higher violence rates. Look at Chicago. I don't have to say much else besides look at Chicago and how much of failure gun control. The politicians in Chicago have failed their citizens. They do not feel safe there. And that's where here in Michigan, we have to have leaders who are going to go to Lansing and fight to restore our Second Amendment rights so that Michiganders can be their own best self-defense. When law enforcement is minutes away, if you live in rural Michigan, state troopers probably on the other side of the county. You need to be able to defend yourself from an armed assailant. And we don't need politicians in Lansing passing laws that force you to lock up your guns and leave you defenseless in the face of that.
It's interesting because some of the things we're seeing happen in Canada right now, we're not far off from. There are certain things that separate us from that. And I think one of those things is the ability that we have to protect ourselves in so many different ways. But Brenden, 22 is a very pivotal year. I just talked about in San Francisco, of all places, deep blue liberal San Francisco. They just recalled 3 school board members there. That could be, and it's sending shockwaves right now through the country. It could be a sign of what's to come in 2022. But it's important because if we don't pay attention here in Michigan, all of these laws and the things that you're talking about that the left wants to get in as far as these gun control laws, I mean, it's very possible we're going to see those because you have a Whitmer who's got get the full state house and Senate. Boy, there's really no telling where she'll stop.
Well, look at what happened in Virginia after Democrats took complete control in 2019. They rammed through as many gun control measures as they could. Repeal or they red flag gun confiscation laws. Buy one gun a month. Universal background checks. Allowing cities to pass their own gun laws. This is what Democrats do when they have power. They use the power. And we're actually seeing gun owners starting to rise up in Virginia, where a repeal of red flag passed just out of the House of Delegates just this week. And that's what Republicans should do when they're in control. They should work to advance the Second Amendment and not sit back and hope nothing bad happens. We need to be constantly on offense, because the anti-gun left is always on offense, and you got to fight fire with fire.
Brenden Boudreau, thanks again for joining us today. Talk about some of these big stories. Great Lakes gun rights, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin. Take care.
You got it. We're just keeping you abreast of the latest, folks. We'll continue. Speaking of which, crime continues to be an